21 Golden Era celebrities who were considered the dumbest. Intelligence, wit, talent, these are qualities we've come to expect from Hollywood's elite. But what if I told you that some of the brightest stars of the Golden Age were actually ridiculed for their supposed lack of intelligence? That's right, 21 beloved icons from Hollywood's most glamorous era were openly mocked, labeled as dumb, and became the butt of industry jokes. But here's the shocking truth. Many of these so-called dumb celebrities were actually playing a much smarter game than anyone realized. Now let's count down from number 21 to number 1 and uncover the truth behind these undeserved reputations. 21. Peter Lorre, the nervous little man who was a literary genius. Often cast as jittery, anxious characters in films like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, Peter Lorre became synonymous with nervous, bug-eyed oddballs. Hollywood gossip and magazine profiles reinforced this image, highlighting his strange accent and peculiar mannerisms, blurring the line between the man and the roles he played. In truth, Lorre, born Laszlo Loewenstein in Austria-Hungary, was a deeply intellectual figure. Fluent in 8 languages, he could recite epic poetry in each, and had worked with Sigmund Freud in early psychoanalytic research before turning to acting. His deep understanding of psychology enriched his performances, even as audiences saw only the surface quirks. During World War II, Lorre used his linguistic talents to aid Allied intelligence, translating sensitive German documents and identifying regional dialects with remarkable precision. Privately, he corresponded with thinkers like Thomas Mann and Bertolt Brecht, engaging in complex discussions about politics and philosophy. Despite his cultural sophistication, Hollywood typecast him. "They expect me to speak broken English and act nervous," he once told director Fritz Lang. "They'd be terrified to know I've read more Goethe than their professors." Audiences laughed at his portrayal of Joel Cairo, unaware they were watching a man capable of discussing medieval poetry in 6 languages. Behind his carefully cultivated image was a brilliant mind whose unproduced plays would later earn recognition in European theater. The nervous little man was, in reality, a master of language, literature, and performance. 20. Carmen Miranda, the Brazilian bombshell, was a cunning business strategist. With her flamboyant fruit hats and fast, heavily accented English, Carmen Miranda became the poster child for Hollywood's exotic but simple stereotype. Promoted as a cheerful, naturally gifted performer, she was often dismissed as a novelty act. One critic even compared her talent to that of a banana. But beneath the playful persona was a sharp, strategic mind. Contrary to popular belief, Miranda was born in Portugal, not Brazil, and her Brazilian bombshell image was a calculated creation tailored for American tastes. Her signature fruit hat wasn't a cultural artifact, but a branding tool she designed herself to stand out in the public eye. Far from being exploited, Miranda was outsmarting the very system that tried to control her. She negotiated groundbreaking contracts, securing script approval and a cut of merchandise sales. When Fox offered her a lower salary, she launched a Broadway show that earned over $4 million in 1939, forcing the studio to meet her demands. Studio heads often assumed she didn't understand English, only for her to shock them with fluent responses and firm negotiations. One producer recalled how she'd switch to perfect English mid-meeting and leave with everything she wanted before they could react. "I make my mistakes on purpose," she once said, revealing the calculated nature of her performance. In 1945, she became the highest-paid woman in the U.S., out-earning the president. To audiences, she was an exotic entertainer. In reality, she was a brilliant businesswoman who expertly manipulated Hollywood's expectations. 19. Stepin Fetchit, the controversial actor whose laziness made him a millionaire. Lincoln Perry, better known as Stepin Fetchit, became infamous for playing the lazy, slow-witted black man, one of Hollywood's most demeaning stereotypes. His characters mumbled, shirked work, and reinforced deeply racist views, making his performances troubling by today's standards. But behind the scenes, Perry was far from the caricature he portrayed. A highly intelligent and strategic thinker, he understood that 1920s Hollywood would only allow black actors on screen if they conformed to demeaning roles. Rather than resist a system stacked against him, Perry exploited it, turning stereotype into opportunity. Off-camera, he was articulate, educated, and savvy. He wrote columns for the Chicago Defender, mastered contract law, and shocked studio executives with his grasp of film finance and distribution. Expecting a bumbling fool, they encountered a shrewd businessman. "I've got them paying me $1,000 a week," he said in 1928, when most Americans earned less than $2,000 a year. "If acting like a fool is what pays, that's what I'll give them." His calculated performances made him Hollywood's first black millionaire. He lived in luxury, reversing the racial norms of his time with a mansion and white servants. Perry's legacy is complex. He helped cement harmful stereotypes while cleverly navigating and profiting from the racist structures that demanded them. Yet beneath the laziest man in Hollywood facade was a tireless worker playing the long game, laying groundwork for future black performers and using the system's own biases to build power and wealth. 18. Betty Grable, the pin-up girl who outsmarted the studio system. Betty Grable, known for her million-dollar legs and wholesome charm, was promoted as a sweet, non-intellectual starlet, beautiful, relatable, and happy just to be famous. Studio marketing and fan magazines emphasized her looks and downplayed any hint of ambition or business savvy. In reality, Grable was a sharp strategist and one of Hollywood's most effective negotiators. After studying financial reports, she discovered her films consistently outperformed others, giving her significant leverage. She used this insight to negotiate a groundbreaking contract with 20th Century Fox, a $7,500 weekly salary, about $125,000 today. Creative control over directors, scripts, and even lighting designed to enhance her famous image. Grable also understood long-term value. While other stars churned out multiple films a year, she limited herself to just 2, preserving her health and making each release an event. The result: sustained popularity, higher box office returns, and an extended career. "They think I'm just a girl with nice legs who got lucky," she said. Let them think that. By the time she retired, she had quietly built a fortune larger than many serious actors. Beneath the pinup image was a savvy businesswoman who outmaneuvered Hollywood on her own terms. 17. Red Buttons, the simple comedian who was actually a cultural scholar. With his youthful face, high-pitched voice, and goofy antics, Red Buttons became known for playing naive, dim-witted characters. His catchphrase, "Strange things are happening," reinforced the image of a lovable fool. So when he won an Oscar for his dramatic role in Sayonara, 1957, many were stunned that the silly comedian could deliver such depth. But off-screen, Buttons, born Aaron Chwat in New York, led a hidden intellectual life. A passionate autodidact, he transformed his dressing rooms into personal libraries filled with philosophy, literature, and cultural theory. While others relaxed on set, he was studying ancient Greek or debating philosophy. His scholarly interests ran deep. He learned classical Greek to read Homer in the original medieval Italian, to explore Dante without translation, and had such command of Jewish theology that rabbinical students often sought his insight on complex Talmudic passages. Director Joshua Logan remembered filming Sayonara in Japan when Buttons began discussing Zen Buddhism with the crew, quoting texts from memory, astonishing the Japanese actors with his depth of understanding. "I play a simpleton to pay the bills," Buttons once admitted, "but I read Aristotle to feed my soul." His career was defined by this contrast, a performer who played the fool in public while privately living as a scholar. The man audiences saw as a comic lightweight was, in truth, one of Hollywood's most cultured minds, a dual identity he maintained throughout his life, earning laughs on stage while pursuing serious knowledge behind the scenes. 16. Zsou Pitts, the flustered spinster who built a real estate empire. Zsou Pitts, known for her worried expression, fluttering hands, and high-pitched, quavering voice, made a career playing nervous, confused characters. Fan magazines portrayed her as a charming but befuddled woman, much like her on-screen roles. Behind this crafted image, however, was a shrewd financial mind. While others focused solely on their acting careers, Pitts quietly built an impressive real estate portfolio across Southern California starting in the 1920s. She studied property values, zoning laws, and identified undervalued areas before they boomed. Her approach was highly strategic, not casual celebrity dabbling. She specialized in spotting neighborhoods on the verge of transformation, buying land cheaply, and holding it until prices soared. One savvy investment in the late 1930s was several blocks in what became one of Beverly Hills' most exclusive areas, purchased before infrastructure developments were publicly known. "Most people think I'm afraid of my own shadow," Pitts once said to a real estate lawyer. "That works in my favor. No one suspects I'm calculating future property values." This underestimated image gave her her an edge in negotiations, allowing her to secure deals others overlooked. By her death in 1963, Pitts's real estate holdings far surpassed her acting earnings, valued at over $2 million, about $18 million today. The woman who seemed perpetually anxious on screen had quietly become one of Hollywood's most successful investors, turning her modest acting income into a substantial fortune. 15. Joe E. Brown, the big mouth clown, who was a mathematical genius. With his enormous mouth and comical expressions, Joey Brown created a persona of good-natured simplicity. His characters were typically well-meaning country bumpkins, whose limited intelligence got them into humorous predicaments. His catchphrase, "Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle," delivered with his mouth agape in exaggerated surprise, reinforced his image as a lovable but dim-witted performer. Behind this cartoonish facade was a mind capable of mathematical calculations that astounded trained accountants. Though Brown had dropped out of school at age 10 to join a circus acrobatic troupe, he possessed a natural mathematical ability that bordered on the miraculous. He could multiply four-digit numbers in his head, calculate complex percentages instantly, and identify numerical patterns that others missed entirely. During the filming of Some Like It Hot, director Billy Wilder witnessed Brown's remarkable abilities when a payroll discrepancy arose. While accountants labored over adding machines, Brown glanced at the columns of figures and immediately identified not only the error, but the exact calculation that had caused it, a feat that left the professional bookkeepers speechless. This wasn't just a parlor trick. Brown applied his mathematical genius to practical matters throughout his career. During the 1929 stock market crash, when most performers lost everything, Brown analyzed market patterns and not only preserved his wealth, but increased it substantially. He developed a mathematical model for predicting market movements that was so effective that several investment firms secretly consulted him during financial crises. On screen, "I'm the guy who can't count his fingers and get the same number twice," Brown once remarked to a colleague who discovered his hidden talent. Off screen, "I could calculate the trajectory of a rocket if I needed to." This wasn't an idle boast. During World War II, Brown helped develop logistical systems for troop movements that were so mathematically efficient that military planners adopted them for widespread use. The gap between Brown's public persona and private capabilities was so vast that even close colleagues were often unaware of his mathematical genius. The man who made audiences laugh with his clownish expressions and apparent simplicity possessed one of Hollywood's most remarkable minds, a mathematical intellect that, had it been developed in a different environment, might have produced a renowned scientist rather than a beloved comedian. 14. Marie Wilson, the My Friend Irma Ditz, who was a shrewd producer. Marie Wilson became the iconic dumb blonde of the 1940s and 50s as Irma Peterson on My Friend Irma. Her character's cluelessness was so believable that fans often spoke slowly and simply to her, assuming she shared Irma's limited intellect. What few knew was that Wilson wasn't just an actress. She was a key creative force behind the show. She collaborated closely with writers to shape Irma's unique brand of comedic confusion, understanding which malapropisms worked and why. Her science of stupidity was a testament to her sharp comedic insight. Wilson also showed impressive business acumen. From the radio show's start in 1947, she negotiated not only for her salary, but for a share of all merchandising and adaptation rights. When CBS executives tried to cut these terms, Wilson hired her own lawyer and stood firm, unusual for women in entertainment at the time. Her strategy paid off when My Friend Irma expanded to TV, films, comics, and merchandise. By 1954, her earnings from these deals far outpaced her acting salary. "People think I'm dumb because I play dumb," she said. "That assumption helped me build wealth while others fought for a better paycheck." Behind the empty-headed persona was a savvy businesswoman mastering both entertainment and finance. 13. Mickey Rooney, the eternal child who was a sophisticated composer. Mickey Rooney was Hollywood's classic man-child, famously playing teenage roles in the Andy Hardy series well into his 20s. His energetic, boyish persona and off-screen image of impulsive marriages and carefree living reinforced the idea that he never matured. But behind this image was a musical prodigy. Without formal training, Rooney composed complex pieces that impressed professional musicians. In 1943, Leonard Bernstein was amazed when Rooney improvised a piano piece blending Debussy and Gershwin styles with such skill that Bernstein thought it was memorized characterized rather than spontaneous. Rooney wasn't just showing off, he composed full film scores, though studios credited others to protect his goofy kid image. For The Big Wheel, 1949, he wrote the entire orchestral soundtrack, but let the studio's music director take the credit. "The studios want me playing the goofy kid," Rooney told composer Andre Previn. "They'd panic if they knew I was writing fugues and concertos between takes." He even composed classical works like a string quartet, performed anonymously by the Los Angeles Philharmonic to great praise. Rooney's public persona hid a remarkable musical intellect. The perpetual adolescent adored by audiences was, in reality, a sophisticated composer whose talent and depth were kept secret to maintain his Hollywood image. 12. Martha Raye, the Big Mouth, whose intelligence served her country. Martha Raye, known as the Big Mouth, for her wide smile and brash comedic style, was famous for playing loud, uncouth characters who seemed more enthusiastic than smart. Fan magazines depicted her as a simple, high-energy performer essentially playing herself. What few knew was Raye's extraordinary service with Special Forces during 3 wars. Trained as a nurse before show business, she worked in dangerous combat zones, supporting medical teams. During the Vietnam War, she made 9 tours to remote Special Forces camps deemed too risky for typical USO shows. There, she assisted with emergency medical care, earning the affectionate nickname Colonel Maggie from soldiers who sought her during triage. Her military insight extended beyond medicine. General William Westmoreland praised her ability to read tactical maps and understand troop movements better than some junior officers. In 1968, Raye identified a defensive weakness at a forward base, leading to repositioned guard posts that soon repelled an enemy attack. "On stage, I'm the loud, simple comedian," Raye said, "but in real life, I do what needs to be done." Her courageous, intelligent service contrasted sharply with her public image, culminating in her burial with full military honors in 1994, a fitting tribute to a remarkable woman beyond her comedic fame. 11. Shemp Howard, the ugliest. Stooge was a financial wizard. Shemp Howard of the Three Stooges played the goofy, confused character with wild hair and odd mannerisms, often seen as the least intelligent stooge. Fans and critics believed he was simply being himself, a naturally odd and silly performer, perfect for slapstick comedy. However, behind this comic act was a sharp financial strategist. While many celebrities indulged in lavish lifestyles, Howard meticulously managed his finances. He kept detailed records, developed investment analysis methods, and optimized his taxes in ways even professional accountants admired. During the 1929 stock market crash, Howard's savvy paid off. He used a mathematical model he created to predict market volatility, buying undervalued stocks and real estate when prices hit rock bottom. This approach not only protected but grew his wealth amid widespread panic. By the 1940s, Howard's expertise attracted attention from financial professionals. Actor William Holden recalled Howard analyzing stocks and commodities between takes with incredible insight. Howard himself said, "On set, I'm the fool. At the bank, I'm the genius." When he died in 1955, Howard's fortune was about $750,000, around $7 million today, far exceeding many of Hollywood's serious stars. The goofy stooge was in fact a financial genius hiding in plain sight. 10. Lucille Ball, the scatterbrained housewife who built a television empire. Lucille Ball was best known as Lucy Ricardo, the lovable but ditzy housewife whose chaotic schemes needed rescuing by her husband Ricky. Fans blurred the line between Ball and Lucy, assuming the actress shared her character's impulsiveness and scatterbrained nature. In truth, Ball was a sharp businesswoman behind the scenes. Alongside her husband, Desi Arnaz, she co-founded Desilu Productions, but it was Ball's strategic insight that turned it into a TV powerhouse. During I Love Lucy, Ball pushed to film the show in Hollywood on 35mm rather than live in New York, despite network resistance. She foresaw the value of filmed episodes for reruns and syndication, securing rights that would bring huge profits long-term. After divorcing Arnaz in 1960, Ball bought his share and became the first woman to run a major TV studio. Under her leadership, Desilu produced groundbreaking series like Star Trek and Mission Impossible, which she championed despite initial doubts from executives. Ball once said, "I may play a dizzy redhead, but I've got a brain for business," perfectly summing up the contrast between her on-screen persona and her real-life acumen. Far from a scatterbrained character, Ball was a visionary whose business savvy transformed television and left a lasting legacy. 9. Oliver Hardy, the fat bumbler who was a sophisticated music composer. Oliver Hardy, famously the larger half of Laurel and Hardy, played a pompous yet clumsy character whose exasperated expressions after mishaps made him the quintessential comedic fool. Audiences and critics assumed he was naturally bumbling, perfectly suited for slapstick comedy. However, off-screen, Hardy was a highly skilled and passionate composer. Raised in a musical family, with his mother a respected music teacher, he studied formally at the Atlanta Conservatory of Music. His compositions were far from simple. They featured complex harmonies inspired by classical romanticism and early modernism. Hardy even published works under a pseudonym to keep his musical career separate from his comedic image. Director Leo McCarey recalled Hardy impressing him by composing an original piano piece on set, shattering assumptions about the foolish actor. Besides music, Hardy was multilingual, fluent in Spanish, Italian, and French, which helped with Laurel and Hardy's foreign film versions. While Laurel focused on scripts, Hardy managed international production details. Hardy once told a music publisher, "The public wants me fat and foolish. They would never accept music from the man they laugh at." This led him to keep his serious musical talents private. The man known for his comic blunders was, in truth, a sophisticated artist hidden behind a beloved, bumbling persona. 8. Judy Garland, the emotional wreck, who was a brilliant businesswoman. Judy Garland is often seen as a fragile, exploited performer overwhelmed by addiction and emotional struggles, reinforcing the image of someone unable to manage her own career. This view, popularized by fan magazines and biographies, overlooks her sharp business sense. After MGM fired her in 1950, a setback expected to end her career, Garland planned a remarkable comeback. Instead of settling for typical nightclub gigs, she targeted large concert halls, a space usually reserved for classical musicians. Her 1951 London Palladium concert and record-breaking New York run were strategic moves to tap into her loyal fan base on a grand scale. Garland expertly tailored performances for various venues and was among the first to capitalize on live recordings, ensuring their quality and promotion. In 1963, she launched a TV series under her own production company, Kingsrow Enterprises, securing ownership of the shows, an unusual deal at the time. Though the series was short-lived, this move demonstrated her foresight regarding intellectual property. Despite her public image as fragile, Garland once said, "Emotionally, maybe I am, but in business, I know my worth." Far from a helpless victim, she was a savvy businesswoman who understood her market and helped pioneer models later followed by others. 7. Lou Costello, the Stupid. Half of Abbott and Costello was a mathematical prodigy. Lou Costello, known as the bumbling, childlike half of Abbott and Costello, crafted the perfect foil to Bud Abbott's straight man with his confused looks and catchphrase, "Hey Abbott." Their iconic "Who's on First" routine reinforced the public's belief that Costello was simple-minded, while Abbott was the practical one. But off-stage, Costello was far from the fool he portrayed. He possessed an extraordinary mathematical talent that amazed accountants and business people alike. Costello could perform complex mental calculations, instantly assess statistical probabilities, and spot financial patterns others overlooked. During contract talks, while Abbott relied on lawyers, Costello quickly decoded complicated deals, identifying hidden clauses and calculating their financial impact precisely. His agent noted Costello could predict box office grosses down to the penny based on ticket sales and seating. Costello's mathematical skill also shaped his comedic timing. Every pause and gag was carefully calculated for maximum effect. Beyond performing, Costello innovated camera techniques for filming comedy, offering expert advice often mistaken as coming from technical staff. "I'm not stupid, I just play stupid," he once said, highlighting the sharp intelligence behind his act. The man seen as a lovable fool was actually a mathematical genius whose insights deeply influenced comedy and filmmaking. 6. Marion Davies, William Randolph Hearst's mistress, who was more than just a pretty face. Marion Davies is often remembered merely as William Randolph Hearst's mistress, with her success attributed solely to his power and money. This view was popularized by Citizen Kane, where the character based on Davies is depicted as a talentless singer, reinforcing the myth that her career was entirely Hearst-driven. However, this portrayal grossly misrepresents her true talents. Davies was a gifted comedic actress, excelling in films like Show People and The Patsy with timing and physical comedy rivaling Chaplin's, though Hearst pushed her into unsuitable dramatic roles. Beyond acting, Davies was a savvy investor who built her own wealth independently. Contrary to public belief, she managed a diverse portfolio of California real estate and blue-chip stocks, making decisions grounded in careful analysis. During the Great Depression, when Hearst's empire faltered, Davies sold jewelry and liquidated assets to lend him millions, a strategic move recognizing the empire's value, not a dependent's whim. Known for her sharp wit and intelligence, Davies was praised by friends like writer Anita Luce for her quick mind and social savvy. She once told director King Vidor, "I would have been successful without William, just in different ways." Far from just Hearst's mistress, Davies was a talented actress, astute investor, and perceptive strategist whose legacy has been unjustly overshadowed by Hollywood myths. 5. Gracie Allen. Comedy's dizzy dame was actually the brains of the operation. For over 30 years, Gracie Allen played the scatterbrained wife whose silly logic frustrated her husband, George Burns. Audiences saw her as the dumb comic, and Burns as the smart straight man. But in truth, Allen was the creative genius behind their act. Her famous illogical logic wasn't random. It was clever wordplay requiring sharp linguistic skill. Burns later admitted, "Gracie was really smart. She pretended to be dizzy because it got laughs. I pretended to be smart, and nobody laughed." Originally, they tried the act with reversed roles, but it fell flat until Allen played the fool, recognizing that 1920s to 30s, audiences found a confused woman funnier than a confused man, a bias she skillfully used. Allen wrote much of their material, reworking scripts to fit their rhythm, and had expert comedic timing. She was also a sharp businesswoman, managing their finances and publicity, famously orchestrating a mock 1940 surprise party presidential campaign that boosted their radio audience. Allen kept the bit alive for months, showing deep media savvy. Burns acknowledged, "In our act, I was the smart one, but in real life, she knew what was right about everything." The dizzy dame was really the smartest person on and off stage. 4. Hedy Lamarr, the most beautiful woman in film, was also a groundbreaking inventor. MGM promoted Hedy Lamarr as the most beautiful woman in the world, focusing solely on her looks and ignoring her intellect. She was cast mostly for her appearance, while fan magazines highlighted her beauty routines and romantic life, neglecting her talents beyond acting. Yet, Lamarr was far more than a pretty face. She was a self-taught inventor who created groundbreaking technology. During World War II, she developed a frequency-hopping system with composer George Antheil to protect radio-guided torpedoes from jamming. Their 1942 patent detailed a method using synchronized changes among 88 frequencies inspired by piano keys. This invention later became the foundation for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. Despite lacking formal engineering training, Lamarr's natural aptitude drove her innovation. However, the U.S. Navy initially dismissed her idea, doubting an actress's technical contributions. Recognition came decades later, after her patent expired, and she never received compensation. In 1997, Lamarr was honored with the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Pioneer Award and the Bulby Nass Spirit of Achievement Award. Her famous quote, "Any girl can be glamorous, just stand still and look stupid," reflects her awareness of Hollywood's underestimation of her intelligence. Lamarr's true legacy lies not in film, but in her revolutionary impact on modern communications technology. 3. Judy Holliday, the Academy Award winner who was a member of Mensa. Judy Holliday won an Academy Award for playing Billy Dawn in Born Yesterday, the quintessential dumb blonde whose ignorance is played for laughs until she begins to educate herself. The role was so convincing that many viewers assumed Holliday must be similar to her character, a beautiful woman with limited intellectual capacity. This perception was reinforced by her subsequent roles, which often cast her as sweet but not particularly bright characters. The truth about Holliday represents one of Hollywood's most startling contrasts between perception and reality. Far from being intellectually limited, Holliday reportedly had an IQ of 172, placing her in the genius category. She was a member of Mensa, the high IQ society that accepts only those scoring in the top 2% of the population on standardized intelligence tests. Born Judith Tuvim in New York City, Holliday was recognized as intellectually gifted from childhood. She was fluent in multiple languages, an accomplished pianist, and possessed a photographic memory that allowed her to memorize an entire script in one reading. Her facility with languages wasn't casual proficiency. She could analyze grammatical structures and linguistic patterns with scholarly precision. Director George Cukor, who worked with Holliday on Born Yesterday, once recalled his astonishment at her intellectual capabilities. Judy could discuss complex philosophical concepts between takes, then switch instantly into playing a woman who doesn't know the meaning of basic words. It wasn't just acting, it was like watching someone with extraordinary mental control deliberately dampen their own intelligence. During the McCarthy era, when called to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee, Holliday reportedly played up her dumb blonde persona to outwit the committee members. She pretended not to understand the questions and gave vague, confused answers, a brilliant strategy that kept her from being blacklisted. This HUAC testimony demonstrates Holliday's remarkable intelligence in action. When questioned about her political activities, she adopted the mannerisms of Billy Dawn, responding with apparent confusion to straightforward questions. One committee member later admitted, "She made us look like such fools that we had to let her go." This wasn't just quick thinking. It was a sophisticated application of her acting skills to a high-stakes political situation. Beyond acting, Holliday was deeply engaged with literature, philosophy, and music. She composed music, wrote poetry, and maintained correspondence with several leading intellectuals of her day. These pursuits remained largely private, as she understood that publicizing her intelligence might undermine her career in a Hollywood that preferred its blonde actresses to fit a simplistic stereotype. Her longtime friend Garson Kanin once said, "Judy Holliday was not stupid, she was sublime." This subtle observation captured the extraordinary paradox of Holliday's career. Her greatest professional success came from convincingly portraying intellectual limitation while possessing one of the most remarkable minds in Hollywood. 2. Marilyn Monroe, the dumb blonde. With an IQ of 168, no Hollywood star has been more thoroughly associated with the dumb blonde stereotype than Marilyn Monroe. Her breathy voice, wide-eyed expressions, and sexually naive persona in films like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and Some Like It Hot created an indelible image of beautiful vapidity. When she uttered lines like, "I can be smart when it's important, but most men don't like it," audiences assumed she was essentially playing herself. This perception represents perhaps the most profound mischaracterization in Hollywood history. Far from being intellectually limited, Monroe was extraordinarily intelligent, with an IQ reportedly measured at 168, placing her in the genius category and higher than many of the directors and writers who crafted her seemingly simple characters. Born Norma Jean Mortensen, Monroe overcame a chaotic childhood and limited formal education through voracious self-education. Her personal library, cataloged after her death, contained over 400 volumes of classic and modern literature, philosophy, politics, and psychology, most with her own annotations and notes in the margins. These weren't books for show, they were well-worn volumes that showed evidence of close, careful reading. Monroe was particularly drawn to complex literary works. She read James Joyce's notoriously difficult Ulysses multiple times, making detailed notes about its stream of consciousness technique. She studied Dostoevsky for psychological insight and Whitman for his understanding of the American character. This wasn't casual reading, it was serious intellectual engagement with some of literature's most challenging texts. More impressively, Monroe was one of the first female actors to form her own production company, Marilyn Monroe Productions, in defiance of the restrictive studio system. This business-savvy move gave her unprecedented control over her career at a time when women were expected to simply follow orders. Forming this company wasn't a whim. It was a calculated business decision that required sophisticated legal and financial understanding. Monroe had studied her contract with 20th Century Fox, identified its weaknesses, and executed a strategy to renegotiate from a position of strength. When Fox initially refused to improve her contract, she simply walked away, moved to New York, and started her company. The studio eventually capitulated, giving her a new contract with higher pay and creative control. Photographer Milton Green, who became her business partner in the production company, later remarked, "Marilyn understood contracts and business arrangements better than most executives I dealt with. She could analyze a deal structure and identify its flaws immediately." The studio lawyers who thought they were dealing with a dumb blonde got the shock of their lives. "Please don't make me a joke," Monroe once pleaded with a reporter. "End the interview with what I believe." This poignant request revealed her awareness of how consistently her intelligence was underestimated, a misconception that persisted until long after her death and continues to shape her popular image today. The gap between Monroe's screen persona and her actual intellectual capabilities represents one of Hollywood's most striking disconnects, a case where an extraordinarily intelligent woman achieved her greatest success by convincingly portraying intellectual limitation, only to find herself permanently identified with the very stereotype she had so skillfully performed. 1. Charlie Chaplin, the little tramp who was a cinematic genius. And at number 1 on our list is Charlie Chaplin, whose portrayal of the little tramp character created an image of a sweet, childlike vagrant who stumbled his way through life. With his bowler hat, baggy pants and cane, Tramp seemed simple-minded, a lovable fool who barely understood the world around him. Many early audiences, unfamiliar with the concept of screen acting, assumed Chaplin was simply playing himself, a simple man with natural comedic abilities rather than a sophisticated performer. This perception couldn't have been further from the truth. Behind the beloved Tramp character was perhaps the most complete artistic genius of the Golden Age. Chaplin wasn't just a performer, he was a comprehensive filmmaker who controlled every aspect of his productions with almost unprecedented precision and vision. While audiences watched the Tramp's apparently spontaneous antics, they were actually seeing the results of Chaplin's extraordinarily methodical process. A single 30-second sequence might require hundreds of takes as Chaplin refined every gesture, expression, and movement to achieve exactly the effect he wanted. What looked like simple physical comedy was actually the product of obsessive perfectionism and analytical precision. Chaplin's understanding of visual storytelling was so advanced that film schools still teach his techniques today. He intuitively grasped principles of composition, editing, and narrative structure that other filmmakers would take decades to develop. His films weren't just funny, they were technically innovative, pushing the boundaries of what cinema could achieve as an art form. Beyond his artistic achievements, Chaplin was an astute businessman who co-founded United Artists with Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith. This revolutionary move challenged the studio system and gave artists unprecedented creative and financial control over their work. While playing a character who seemed barely able to function in society, Chaplin was actually restructuring the entire film industry's business model. Chaplin was also politically engaged and intellectually sophisticated. His films like Modern Times and The Great Dictator demonstrated a deep understanding of complex social and political issues. He read voraciously and could discuss philosophy, politics, and art with remarkable insight. The seemingly simple Tramp was created by a man who could quote Shakespeare, analyze Nietzsche, and discuss economic theory with leading intellectuals of his day. Perhaps most remarkably, Chaplin mastered multiple aspects of filmmaking that typically require specialized training. He not only acted in his films, but wrote, directed, produced, edited, and even composed the music for them. Each of these skills would represent a significant achievement individually. Mastering all of them demonstrated an intellectual range that few creative figures in any field have matched. "I remain just one thing and one thing only, and that is a clown," Chaplin once said. "It places me on a far higher plane than any politician." This self-deprecating comment belied the extraordinary intelligence of a man who, while playing a simpleton on screen, revolutionized an entire art form behind the camera. The gap between Chaplin's Little Tramp and his actual genius represents the most profound example of how Hollywood's golden age often obscured the remarkable intelligence of its greatest stars, presenting them as simpler, less sophisticated, and less intellectually complex than they truly were. If you enjoyed this journey through Hollywood history, hit that like button and subscribe for more revealing looks at the golden age of cinema. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which of these stars surprised you the most? Until next time, keep questioning the stories Hollywood tells you, both on and off the screen.